The first item of business is general questions. As ever, succinct questions and answers to match will enable more members to take part. And I call Eleanor Whittam, question number 1.
To ask the Scottish Government what steps it has taken to increase the capacity of on-street charging infrastructure as drivers switch to electric vehicles.
Minister Graham Day.
Presiding Officer, we've already invested more than £45 million to develop the publicly available Charge Place Scotland network, which now consists of over 1,900 charge points across the country. The network includes a number of public charging hubs already available in some towns and cities, with more planned throughout Scotland, and we continue to work with local authority charge point hosts to strengthen and expand the network. This year we'll provide funding to enable £2 million of on-street charging projects across Scotland, specifically for those areas without access to off-street parking.
Eleanor Whittam.
There are many rural villages and market towns in my constituency where properties are hard to pavement, such as my own, and as such do not have private driveways. Currently, these properties do not qualify for the grant funding for the installation of home chargers, leaving many citizens to rely on on-street charging infrastructure should they wish to reduce their carbon footprint. Is the Scottish Government aware of these situations across Scotland, and what considerations are being made for the many people who will be in this situation?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, as an MSP for a rural constituency myself, I'm very much aware of these issues, and I hope Ms Witham will take assurance from the fact that government officials are working with the South Ayrshire Council to support the installation of chargers that will provide for people without access to off-street charging in Strayton, Bar Hill, Daly and Maybole. The Scottish Government is also currently consulting on requirements for installing charge points in car parks of residential and non-residential buildings, which will further enhance access to electric vehicle charging across Scotland.
Monica Lennon.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. South Lanarkshire Council said it would install over 100 electrical vehicle charging points, but it's cut this plan by 42%. And notwithstanding the challenges of the pandemic, a £1 million fleet of electric vehicles has barely left the council car park in a year, with charging being a big concern. So what can the Scottish Government do to help South Lanarkshire Council expand local charging networks and make people feel more confident about using electric vehicles?
Minister.
Well, as the member will understand, any actions that South Lanarkshire Council have taken will be a matter for them to defend and to explain. However, to answer her point about engagement with the Scottish Government is actively engaged with local authorities in seeking to encourage this, and that is our direction of travel, and we expect local authorities to join us in that.
Jackie Dunbar.
Thank you. I thank the Minister for his previous answer in regards to how many EV charging points are in Scotland. Can he expand on that a little bit and tell us how much that is compared to the rest of the UK?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, the most recent statistics show that Scotland has over 2,500 publicly available chargers, which represent 47 chargers per 100,000 of population, compared to 36 chargers per 100,000 of population for the whole of the UK. Importantly, within this, Scotland has the highest proportion of rapid chargers and is well ahead of the rest of the UK, with 12 per 100,000 compared to a UK average of 6.8 per 100,000. But of course, there is much more to do, because the uptake of electrical vehicles is showing a welcome increase.
Question number 2, Liam Kerr.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to recent research which suggests that chain stores in Scotland closed at a rate of 30 per week during the first 6 months of 2021.
Minister Tom Arthur.
We understand the difficulties faced by Scotland's retail industry as a result of the global pandemic. In recognition of that, the Scottish Government has provided businesses with more than £4.3 billion in support since the start of the pandemic. We continue to support the retail sector and other businesses as we rebuild the economy following the pandemic, including through the work of the Retail Strategy, the Town Centre Review and City Centre Recovery Task Force, as well as the Scotland Loves Local £10 million multi-year support programme.
Liam Kerr.
The Centre for Cities report says Aberdeen has the UK's fourth lowest high street spend, and around 90 units currently lie empty. Now, RGU and Aberdeen Inspired suggest reasons for this include the business rates and the overheads, and others point to how slowly the SNP got COVID relief out the door. Aberdeen Council has a master plan, but the reinstatement of 100% business rates in 6 months' time is casting a long shadow. So what plans does the Minister have to introduce a fairer business rate system and restore a level playing field with England on the higher property rate?
Minister.
As the member will be aware, in Scotland we have the most generous package of rates relief anywhere in the UK. Indeed, we were the only part of the UK to give full NDR relief for hospitality, leisure, aviation and retail, and that was an investment of over £700 million. Now, as a member will appreciate, decisions around NDR will be taken as part of the budget process, but I very much look forward to his constructive and informed contribution to that process later this year.
Question number 3, Bill Kidd.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government if there are timescales and numbers of units for the rollout of electric vehicle charging sites across Scotland.
Minister Graham Day.
There's a wide range of factors that influence and ultimately determine the types, numbers and timescales for the rollout of electric charging infrastructure. This includes technology developments in terms of vehicles, batteries and charging equipment, as well as the impact of other actions supporting the Scottish Government's ambition to reduce the total number of privately owned cars and reduce car kilometres by 20% by 2030. Therefore, it is not possible to specify exact timescales and numbers.
Bill Kidd.
Well, I thank the Minister for that response. Electric charging will obviously become an increasingly essential part of our infrastructure, and I know that Charge Place Scotland network is supported by the Scottish Government and Transport Scotland. Will the cost of charging be determined by government or market conditions, and has the Government discussed what action can be taken to ensure the cost of electric charging is maintained at an affordable rate?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, Bill Kidd raises a critical point. If the switch to electric vehicles is to work for all of our population, then people need to be able to afford to do that. Currently, tariffs are set by charge point owners to cover the cost of electricity provided, as well as maintaining and growing the network. And there are other private networks operating in Scotland that charge on a commercial basis. But regardless of the source of investment, this Government is committed to delivering a charging network that works for all of Scotland all the time. So we are continuing to engage with charging providers, energy network companies and regulators to ensure the charging network is affordable.
Question number 4, Colin Smith.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government when it will implement Part 3 of the Transport Scotland Act 2019 to allow local authorities to bring forward proposals to directly run bus services in their area.
Minister Graham Day.
Presiding Officer, as I outlined in my letter to all members in June, work to implement Part 3 of the Act resumed earlier this year following a pause necessitated by the pandemic. We're consulting currently to help inform the development of the necessary second legislation and guidance. The consultation closes on the 6th of October, and I would of course encourage all interested parties, if they've not already done so, to feed into this process.
Colin Smith.
Thank you, President Officer. The Minister will know that it's more than 2 years since I proposed an amendment to the Transport Bill to lift that historic ban on councils directly running bus services or establishing municipal bus companies. So can he give us a timescale when he expects those powers to actually come into force? Because councils do want to get on with the job of delivering bus services to their community, and will he also ensure direct funding is made available to councils to enable them to use those powers, including capital and revenue start-up costs?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, let me begin by recognising the constructive way in which Colin Smith engaged in the Transport Bill and those provisions. He's asking for a timetable. In essence, we would expect to have the findings of the consultation available to us towards the end of the year, and I offer him this assurance that we will look to move on this as quickly as possible, because like him, I see this as a real priority. In terms of funding, as he knows, we've committed to establishing the Community Bus Fund for this purpose and others, and as we see the outcome of the recommendations from the consultation, we'll be able to move forward on that also, and I'm happy to work with him on this moving forward.
Graham Simpson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The original question which Colin Smith asked was when will the Government implement Part 3 of the Transport Act? I'm not sure we've had an answer to that. Although the Minister said the consultation will close by the end of the year, can he actually give an answer to the original question when he anticipates this Part 3 of the Transport Act being implemented?
Minister.
I think I did answer that question, and for an experienced parliamentarian, I would have thought Mr Simpson would have picked up on that. As he knows, we will need to develop the secondary legislation. There will have to be time found in the parliamentary timetable. The committee will want to scrutinise it, and I would anticipate it being done as quickly as it is possible to do that.
Question number 5, Tess White.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on progress with the duelling of the A96.
Minister Graham Day.
Presiding Officer, the Scottish Government is committed to improving the A96, and while the current plan is to fully dual the A96 between Inverness and Aberdeen, as part of the cooperation agreement with the Scottish Green Party, we have agreed to conduct a transparent, evidence-based review of the programme, which will report by the end of 2022.
Tess White.
Minister, Police Scotland data shows 195 people in the last 3 years in the North East have been involved in a crash, with at least one fatality. Despite the review currently underway, and despite the safety concerns of local communities, and despite what you've just said now, Green MSP Maggie Chapman believes, and I quote, "it will not be viable to fully dual the A96 route." Can you please say, do you agree or not agree with Green MSP Maggie Chapman?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, Maggie Chapman, like any other MSP in this chamber, is entitled to their view. As a Minister in this Government, I am committed to the review process. The review process will determine how we take this forward. But I want to go back to the start of that question, because if the inference was that somehow safety concerns along this route would be ignored, that is reprehensible and it is untrue.
Well said. Fergus Ewing.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The traffic congestion experienced in Nairn by the local residents can be as bad as that experienced in Glasgow or Edinburgh, except that in Nairn there is only one road for citizens to use, namely the A96, which goes through the town. Delays of up to an hour can be experienced to get from one end of the town to the other during the tourism season. Therefore, can I ask the Minister, will he approve and commence the initiation of the tender process for the delivery of the preferred route agreed of the duelling of the A9 between Inverness and Aldern, including the Nairn bypass? And will he accept my invitation as the constituency member to come and meet local people to hear for himself the strength of views and feelings on this matter?
Minister.
I'm happy to commit to such a visit, although I'm not in any way unaware of the strength of the views, given the many conversations I've had with Mr Ewing, who is a strong advocate for this. And I'm sure the member will very much welcome the fact that what is committed, regardless to on the A96, includes the bypassing in Nairn and the duelling from Inverness to Nairn. But as a former minister, Mr Ewing knows there are processes around such projects which have to be followed. That said, I give him the assurance we will move as quickly as we can to progress this work.